Hey, third grade art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. I just wanted to talk to you about how we're going to finish up our clay tiles today. So if you were able to put your tile in a plastic bag, we're going to get it out. Okay. And I'm going to get back my cardboard placemat so I can set my tile onto it. And then I'm also going to open up my container where I had placed the slip, and it's actually still wet. And then I had taken my clay and I had wrapped some damp paper towels around it, and so my clay is actually really pretty moist because I did that. All right, so if your clay happens to be too stiff, what I might recommend is to take a couple damp paper towels, kind of like this, wrap it around the clay, and then let it sit for a day or so, and then it will soften back up. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and get your stuff ready, this is I have my clay tile here, and then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so last week I showed you a couple strategies on how to make some shapes, and based on our conversation that we had on Friday, I'm going to show you again a couple of those strategies. So for example, when we are making the heads of our family members, what we're going to do is we're just going to take a little pinch of clay. Okay, I just took a little pinch of clay, and what we can do is we can roll it into sort of a ball like this, and then if we just set it, I'm just going to set it on the cardboard, and I'm just going to squish it flat a little bit, and then you can kind of see, hey, now I have now I kind of have a circle / oval, and it fits relatively onto the shapes that I have kind of pre-drawn onto my tile. So then we talked about earlier how then what you can do is you're going to take your wooden skewer, and I'm just going to kind of rough up the back, so I'm making lines go horizontally, and then I'm making them go vertically. And then I want to stick this onto what's going to be my daughter's head, so kind of in that shape that I've drawn on there, I'm doing that same sort of roughing up, and then I'm just going to take a little bit of my slip here, and I'm going to put a little bit on there, and then a little bit here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and sort of place that head down like that. And if there's a little bit sticking out, you can kind of use your popsicle stick to kind of smooth in there if you want to, and whatnot. And also sometimes then what I like to do is to take my popsicle stick and kind of push on the head a little bit to kind of form a little bit of a neck down at the bottom. So I'm just kind of like squishing it in and then down a little bit like that. And I can use my wooden skewer too to kind of shape a little bit around the edge there. And there we have my head. Okay, now let's say I wanted to make the rectangular shape, so let's talk about that again. So same thing, I took a little pinch of clay, I'm going to roll it into a ball. Okay, and same thing, I'm going to set it down on the cardboard, and I'm going to give it a squish. Okay, and it's shaped like in a circle, right? But then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm just going to kind of shape it more like a square. And if I wanted to, I can just take my wooden skewer and I'm just going to kind of take off the top and the bottom. And now I kind of have a rectangle. And then I'm going to see, hey, how does that fit in the shape where I want it to go? And it fits fairly well. So if it does, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off. And again, I'm going to rough up here, this way, and then I'm going to go this way, and this way. Okay. I'm going to take my slip, kind of squish it, not squish it, but rub it on there. Okay. Then I'm just going to place it down and kind of smooth it up a little bit. All right. And then I can do the same thing with the shorts. If I was making a smaller rectangle, I would just take a smaller ball of clay. I'm just kind of rolling it around. And then same thing, I'm going to flatten it. And then I can take my wooden skewer and now I have this little rectangle and I can kind of see, hey, that fits right in there. And it might just be a little bit too wide. So the cool thing is I can just take my skewer and go, whoop, and I took off. Oops, I have to be careful, I almost squished it. Now it fits right in that little spot there. And then what I'll do is I will go rough, 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 like that, back and forth. Then I'm going to do it on the back here. Take my little bit of slip, dab some on there, dab some on there, and smooth it down. And if at any time it gets a little bit cracked or funny, you can use just a little bit of your slip to kind of smooth it. You can use your wooden skewer to kind of draw in some details. There's a tiny little piece here, kind of where my daughter's arm kind of comes around like that. So I'm going to take just a tiny little ball of clay and I'm going to roll it kind of like a snake, like this. And then I'm just going to give it a little squish down. And that's kind of how I can form an arm. But I don't need it to be super, super long. So I'm going to see kind of how that fits in there. And then I'm going to rough up in there a little bit. And then I'm going to rough up the back of this. Take my slip. And fit that arm right in there like that. And if I want to draw other details, I can kind of carve it in with my skewer. And here, well, let's finish up. I'll finish up the shorts and I'll do her legs and then we'll talk a little bit about hair and details. And then the one last thing I want to talk to you guys too is about the edge of the tile. So here, let's do her shorts. So again, I'm just taking a little pinch of clay, rolling it into a ball, then I'm squishing it down. And then I'm just taking my wooden skewer and shaping it into a rectangle. And now that it is, I'm just going to rough that up, rough up the back, get my slip, and then stick that down. Okay, then for legs, I'm going to take a little bit of clay and I'm just going to roll it into a sort of like a little snake there. And then I'm just going to kind of gently squish it. And I'm going to see, is that good enough? And it's not quite, so I need it to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take a bigger, just a little bit of bigger thing of clay and roll it. Kind of into a cylinder. And I'm tapping it. So now it's a little bit bigger and longer. There we go. Okay. And if it's a little bit too wide, it's okay. I can take my skewer. And again, I can take some of the excess on the side off. Kind of shape it like that. That's gonna go there. And I'll do one more while I'm at it. So again, I'm gonna take my piece of clay, I'm gonna roll it. Like a snake. And then I'm gonna pat it. And this time it's way too long, but that's okay. And then I'll just make a mark there. And I'll just cut it off there. And then what I'm going to do is, oops, I will rough up where I'd like this to go. I'm going to rough up where that, and then I'm going to rough up the back of this one. Put some slip on the back. Put some slip right here. Stick this leg down. Kind of smooth it. If it got a little funny, you can kind of reshape it. With your skewer. So there's one. the second one. I got that roughed up. I'll rough up the back of this. Put the clay on the slip on there. Slip on there. And smooth that down. All right, now let's talk about some hair details, and we can also talk about carving into the faces, okay? So my daughter has long hair, and so I'm going to do something similar to with the legs, where I take a ball and I'm just going to roll it out and then kind of squish it. And I kind of have formed it into kind of, I might make it a little bit thinner. And then I kind of flattened it, and I'm going to see how I like that. And I do. So then what I'm going to do is where I want to attach it, same thing, I'm just going to rough up in that little spot. And then I'm going to rough up on the back here. Put some slip. Put some slip. And then smooth the hair down. Okay. And there we go. There's one side. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to take a little, I just took a little bit of clay. It's just a little ball. I'm going to roll it. And then squish it. And then kind of shape it. Now see there, it broke off and it got a little thin, so that's okay. I'm just gonna take another piece and just try it again. So I'm gonna roll it. Yeah, this one's a little bit better. Flatten it down a little bit and kind of figure out where I want it. Can kind of fit in there like that. And then same thing, I just want to attach it kind of up in here, so I'm going to rough that up, rough this up, take my slip, and then attach that, and there we go. Okay. Now, to do the face, what I can do is I can take my wooden skewer and I can kind of draw into the clay with my skewer. I'm going ahead and doing the eyes and then the nose. And one thing you can also do, instead of carving the nose, you can kind of roll like a tiny little sort of piece of clay and then just kind of smooth it on there to kind of stick up a little bit. a little bit too big. So there, I'm just kind of smoothing that in there a little bit. And now I can redraw my and if I want to add some details, I can carve those in. And I can do it on the hair too. I can use the skewer to kind of carve in and carve away too if there's too much. You can kind of use it to shape too. Alright guys, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was after you work your way across your tile and you finish all of your family members, the last thing that you might want to do is to think about decorating the border of your tile. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. The first way is that you can use your wooden skewer and you can just kind of draw in a design. So for example, if I wanted to draw, if I wanted to kind of draw this wavy line here like this, I can do that. And then I could continue it around all of the sides. And once I have it drawn in, I can kind of carve away a little more of it if I wanted to make the lines a little bit deeper and more pronounced. So carving into the clay is one way that you can create a border for your tile. And then the last thing that you could do is you could think about, you could also do kind of how we did when we created the tile, is you could add something to the tile. So you could take, for example, let's say I wanted to create a sun up in the corner of this part of the tile. I could create it and then slip and score and attach it. Or let's say I wanted to add a shape, for example. So same thing as we did before, where we would create, take a pinch of clay, create a ball, we can flatten it. And the larger, so that's a pretty small ball, but if you take a larger chunk of clay. Same thing, you're going to roll it into a ball, and then just on your cardboard, if you just kind of gently flatten it, then now you have a bigger disc with which to either draw a shape into and cut out. So for example, we talked about the sun. So what I could do is I could draw, I'm just going to draw that sun shape like that. And then I'm just going to press into the clay with my wooden skewer to cut away. So now here I have my sun shape, and if it has a few cracks or little boogers or whatnot, I can kind of smooth those out. And then once I get it how I like it, then we will slip and score it. So let's say I wanted it to go kind of in, oops, kind of in this area. I'm going to see how it fits with the head here. And it's okay that part of it is extending off the tile. So if let's say I like this location here, then I would just kind of pick it up. And same thing as before, I would rough up that spot. I would rough up the back. So I'm going to go this way, take my slip, put some slip, put some slip, and then I would stick that down. Give it a nice little tap. And there we go. Okay, so so either you can add things by slipping in, scoring them to the frame, or like I said before too, you can carve away a design too. And let's say I wanted to continue that design, I could continue drawing it. And again, if you mess up, let's say, oops, I didn't want it to kind of go like that. You can kind of rub over it and try it again. Okay. So once you are all finished with your tile and you absolutely love it, then what you can do is you can, you're going to put it in a Ziploc bag, all right? But you don't need to have anything else around it. You can just put it in the Ziploc bag like this, okay? You can zip it up, and then you'll have your parents return it to school, and there will be a box that says 3rd grade clay, and they can gently put it in there. And then what will happen is I will let it dry, and then I will fire it. Now, let's say you're not ready to be finished with your tile just yet, but it seems like it's drying out a little bit. What you can do is, in the meantime, before you put it into the bag, what you can do is you can Take, like we talked about, you can take a damp paper towel, just kind of place it over top of your tile. Maybe put another one underneath your tile, and then put it into the Ziploc bag, and then zip it up real nice and tightly, and then just put it in a cool, dry place. And then when you're ready to work on it again, then it'll still be nice and soft enough for you to work on it again. And as I said before, if your actual clay that I gave you is a little bit soft or is a little bit too hard, take your clay, kind of form it into a ball, take some damp paper towels, just wrap it around the clay, put it in your container, and then close up the container, and then that'll soften it up for you as well. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and otherwise, hopefully I'll look forward to talking to you guys on Friday and seeing how you're finishing up with your tiles. Have a great week.